The air inside the wooden belly is thick with pine resin and the sour, sharp tang of 30 men breathing in the dark. Silence is not a choice here. It is the only thing keeping the blade from the throat. Outside, the city of Troy breathes its last, a rhythmic thrum of celebration and wine-soaked relief vibrating through the timber walls. Odysseus sits in the gloom, his hand clamped like an iron vise over the mouth of a trembling youth. One sound, a cough, a clatter of bronze, and the 10-year harvest of blood is for nothing. The war had become a ghost, a cycle of tides and funerals that seemed destined to outlive the men who fought it. For 10 years, the bronze-clad hosts of Achaea had battered themselves against the limestone walls of Ilium. They had seen Achilles fall, his godlike heels bitten by the dust. They had seen Ajax lose his mind to the shifting winds of pride. The Scamander plain was a graveyard of reputations, a place where the sun rose on glory and set on rot. The Greeks were tired, their ships worm-eaten, and their spirits frayed like old rope. In this hollow of despair, the mind of Odysseus turned from the edge of the sword to the edge of the soul. He knew that Troy was not a fortress of stone, but a fortress of belief. To kill the city, one had to kill its caution. The plan was a gamble born of absolute desperation, a hollow idol left upon the sand as a monument to a goddess. Odysseus did not want to climb the walls, he wanted the Trojans to open them. He would weaponize their exhaustion and their desperate hunger for an end to the dying. The building of the horse was a ritual of shadows. Epius, the master carpenter, carved the ribs of the beast from the timber of the Ida Mountains. Every joint was fitted to be silent, every plank seasoned, to prevent the telltale groan of wood on wood. The warriors chosen for the belly were grim-faced veterans who knew how to inhabit the silence. They armed themselves in the half-light of the Greek camp, binding their scabbards with cloth to prevent the ring of steel. We do not go to fight a battle, we go to be the night. The Greeks set fire to their own tents, a plume of smoke rising like a final prayer as the fleet pulled away to hide behind the crags of Tenedos. They left behind a single man, Sinon, whose tongue was more dangerous than 1,000 arrows. As the sun crested the horizon, the Trojans looked out upon a beach that was suddenly, miraculously empty. Standing alone in the salt spray was the great wooden horse, its eyes fixed on the city with an eerie gaze. The gates of Troy, bolted for a decade, groaned open to the morning light. The people poured out like a flood, weeping and laughing as they touched the sand as if it were holy ground. They gathered around the silent beast, their hands tracing the grain of the wood, unaware that the heart of their enemy was beating just inches from their fingertips. The first contact was a choice. The priest Laocoön rushed forward, his voice a jagged edge of warning in the sun-drenched air. "I fear the Greeks, even when they bring gifts," he cried, hurling a spear into the horse's flank. The bronze head bit into the wood, shivering near a Greek throat. The silence inside was a physical weight, a scream held back by sheer force of will. But fate intervened. Great serpents coiled out of the sea to silence the priest, and the Trojans, blinded by their own need for a miracle, interpreted his death as a sign of divine anger. They chose to believe. They threw ropes around the neck of the horse and began to pull. To the Trojans, it was the sound of peace coming home. To the men inside, it was the ticking of a clock that counts down the end of a civilization. The great wooden beast moved across the plain, its massive wheels grinding into the dry earth. The horse was too tall for the gates. The Trojans, in their divine madness, tore down a section of their own invincible walls to bring the destruction inside. The stones that had defied a decade of siege were cast down by the hands of those they were meant to protect. By midday, the horse stood in the center of the citadel, a silent god in a city of fools, waiting for the shadows to lengthen and the torches to burn low. As night falls, the celebration turns to a haze of wine and firelight. The Trojans drink to the end of the war, to the sons they lost, and to the gods who finally smiled. But inside the horse, the air has turned cold. Odysseus watches through a knothole as the torches flicker and die, as the sentries slump over their spears. And as the city descends, into a heavy, drunken slumber. The revelation hits him then. Troy is not being conquered by his sword, but by its own hope. Their greatest vulnerability was their capacity to trust. Odysseus sees Priam's palace, the ancient stones glowing in the moonlight, and he realizes that tonight he is the architect of a void. He is not just killing men, he is erasing a lineage. The hatch opens with the sound of a long-held breath finally released. One by one, the Greeks descend on ropes of twisted hemp, their feet hitting the temple floor like the first drops of a thunderstorm. The signal fire is lit atop the ramparts, a single, flickering flame that calls the fleet back from the shadows to finish what the horse began. The immediate conflict is a slaughter, not a duel. The Greeks drift through the streets like smoke, entering homes where the inhabitants are too drunk or too stunned to scream. The plan has worked perfectly, and in that perfection lies its horror. The city that stood for an age is undone in an hour, not by a heroic charge, but by a knife in the dark and a fire in the thatch. In the flickering light of the burning palace, the masterstroke of Odysseus is revealed in blood and the smell of ancient cedar burning. The aftermath is a sky the color of a bruised plum, choked with the soot of 1,000 years of history burning at once. As the dawn breaks, it finds no city, only a charred ribcage of stone. The Greeks stand on the shore, their shadows long and jagged against the ruins. There is no cheering. Even the victors move with a heavy mechanical exhaustion, their eyes reflecting the hollow glow of the embers. The women of Troy are led in chains toward the ships, their cries mixing with the salt wind and the morning mist. The smoke rises in a straight, unwavering column, a funeral pyre for a civilization that died because it wanted to believe the world was kinder than it truly was. Odysseus stands on the prow of his ship, looking back at the pyre. He has won the war, he has secured the legacy of his name, but he feels the weight of the shadow he has cast. He has broken the laws of hospitality and used the gods as a mask for murder. The physical wounds will heal, but the inner cost is a coldness that will never leave. He has learned that victory through deception leaves a stain that no sea can wash away. What truly carried the Greeks through was a collective descent into the dark, the choice to abandon the honorable path for the lie. The stakes are answered in the ash. Their belief in the plan saved them, but it broke the world they knew. History remembers Odysseus for his cunning, the man of many ways who outthought the walls. But in the trial of the wooden horse, he learned that the most dangerous weapon is the story a man tells himself. The fires of Troy are cold, but the sea is wide, and the gods have long memories for those who use their names in the dark. A new storm is gathering on the horizon, one that will test whether the man who destroyed a city can survive the long, lonely path home. Walk with us through the old stories and witness the heavy price of survival. Subscribe to Saga Weaver, where ancient warriors face impossible choices and the echoes of the past never truly fade.